time to turn you into a fan of the Dan. The guy that went solo from the Misfits, a band that had become groundbreaking over time, and went and became more popular and wrote arguably better music solo. And with a guy with a short stature, don't sell him short, because he was a Wolverine on the vocals. And his howling voice is regularly compared to Jim Morrison, Roy Orbison, and even Elvis. Now, Glenn Danzig was writing and pretty much controlling the Misfits in their early days until he decided to just end the band and leave them all hanging. And with the bass player Eerie Von, he was running a well-oiled machine called Samhain, or Samhain if you want to be anal about it.
Samhain.
We're talking about Danzig today. That stuff is really good. Look into it though. But in 1986, everyone's favorite lazy lay-on-the-couch producer Rick Rubin, who would work with Slayer and worked with the likes of the Beastie Boys, and convinced Glenn that, hey, you should do your own supergroup thing. And that went exactly nowhere, but he quickly got some members together, one of them from Samhain, Eerie Von, to play bass, as well as the awesome John Christ on guitar and Chuck Biscuits and Gravy to play the drums.
Does this now give you a lot more opportunity to concentrate on writing and singing?
Yeah.
In this concept?
Yeah, I don't have to worry about doing all the other stuff, like in the studio or playing guitar or any of that stuff. I have a real band.
Now the production on here is just bare bones. It sounds like the other kind of productions Rick Rubin was doing at the time with bands like The Cult, but it works even better here. It's almost like a mixture of AC/DC and Black Sabbath. It sounds sinister and bluesy, and you have so many absolute classics on here, like the opening track, Twist of Cain, which would show a lot of the lyrical directions that Glenn Danzig would take with this band. Not only having some sort of dark satanic theme, but also mixing in elements of his philosophy. And as many of you know, Glenn is actually extremely well read, reading dark, creepy books. And for fuck's sake, he even has a pile of possessed bricks on his front lawn. And speaking of possessed, the songs Possession and Mother and a couple others like Twist of Cain were actually originally going to be Samhain songs, or Samhain. Rick Rubin, the producer, convinced them to change things, make it more streamlined, make it more hard rock, and it turned these songs into the classics that they are. And it made what would have been a punk song, Mother, into the hit song that it is, the song that we all know and love. But if many of you do know that this song didn't blow up until later on with the Thrall Sweat Demon Live EP. But what made this song so cool is that it was actually lashing out at censorship and the PMRC at the time. They were putting the parental advisory stickers and censorship labels on albums, and this is your classic Glenn Danzig rebellious song.
Yeah, Mother was censored like 3 times.
Against my wishes. I think the combination of our lyrics and music and like the erotically aggressive visuals, it's just like paints too foreboding a picture for network execs, you know. They think music videos should be safe and unassuming, like, you know, entertainingly bland. We feel it should be, you know, very intense.
But you still have your metal on here, like the song Am I Demon, which basically is chugging along at almost a thrashy pace. And even the song Possession has James Hetfield from Metallica doing backing vocals. My favorite song on here has got to be She Rides, which has, thanks to Chuck Biscuits and Gravy, the sexiest beat ever, but the unsexiest, flattest women I've ever seen in the music video. I mean, these chicks just tower over Glenn Danzig in stature. This was just proof positive that at this point, every single thing Glenn touched turned to gold.
Have you come under fire from any religious groups or organizations?
Well, I haven't really got that much flack yet, but I mean, if they want to fight, it's about me. I probably know more about organized religion than they do. Probably know more about their histories and what they really should be all about than they do. So, if you want to fight, come on.
This is song for song, arguably the most consistent thing Danzig has ever released in any of his bands. It is an out and out classic. What's funny though, if you think about it, every single one of the albums from the Danzig Golden era takes place in the 90s. What other metal band other than extreme metal had their classic era in the 90s? The sound is better here, it's more bluesy, the performances are stronger, it's more metal. Hell, even the album cover is perfect with a hairy ass bear chest. And it gets down dirty and bluesy in the music video for I'm the One. Glenn was sitting there wrangling up some gators, boy. Gonna get down there in this on Louisiana, I guess I was gonna buy you some crawfish and get it, you hear me, boy?
Come on, Glenn, get up, we wanna get it.
Hey, you the one! Little boy, you the one! Do it one more time! There's so many hard-hitting songs in here, like Snakes of Christ, and then you have Devil's Plaything, which probably has Glenn's best singing of all time. Under Her Black Wings is super anthemic, but my favorite song here has got to be the song that starts out all bayou and country sounding, almost like the song I'm the One, but then it hits harder than ever with slide guitar on 777, The Neighbor of the Beast. This is just a masterclass album, and if you're trying to get into Danzig, it is easily the one that I'd recommend to you, but it's not my favorite.
I do what I like to do. When I write a song, I sit back, and before I put those words down, I say to myself, I know a lot of other people don't, but I say to myself, okay, yeah, that's me. When I tell somebody I'll bust their head open if they screw with me, I'm not lying.
One thing good about the record entered into Billboard at 24, and what it did was it sent a message to all these people that just think music like what we do is a fluke, and that, you know, it shouldn't get airplay here or there, and that it's just a flash, it's not going away, it's staying, and, you know, we have more fans now than we ever had.
This, however, is my all-time favorite Danzig album, and one of my favorite metal albums, and of course, it just gets doomy, dark, thrashy and sludgy all throughout the whole thing, being the heaviest thing, arguably, that he's ever done. We got songs right out of the gate that are just pummeling you with doom and then all of a sudden thrash aggression. Even the album cover just goes harder with some H.R. Giger art. Hey, you got so many classics on here, like The Left Hand Black, Heart of the Devil, obviously, and then who cannot love My Dirty Black Summer? Ugh.
Yeah, my dirty black summer. Yeah, give me black summer.
Now, my all-time favorite song here has got to be either between the title track, which starts out very melodic and then goes heavy and doomy, and then the other song, which is almost exactly the same in structure, but honestly has a better melody, has great singing from Glenn, and one of John's best guitar solos on the song Anything. And then they released the EP Thrall Sweat Demon Live. Try saying that 10 times fast. I know I've tried. And that's when they blew up, because the live music video for Mother is the real version of Mother that got the MTV heavy rotation and made Danzig the household name he was.
Thrall Demon Sweat Live, the 4 live songs were recorded at Irvine Meadows last year, or 2 years ago on the How the Gods Kill tour. We played in front of 13,000 plus people. And a lot of the bands that do get airplay and were the big bands at the time couldn't sell that place out. We oversold that place. That was kind of a big middle finger to everybody.
And there's also some other good songs on here, like The Violet Fire. This is also around the exact same time that Glenn did his infamous ambient album, The Black Aria.
You get some band who just wrote, Satan, Satan, kill, kill, murder, murder, okay? Sure, you know, kid is gonna love that, okay? But, you know, is there anything there? No, there's nothing there. So what I'd rather do is scratch the surface and delve into it, you know, and, you know, let people decide for themselves.
Now, Danzig 4 is definitely a catch-22 because you're going to get a lot of experimentation on here, but also you're going to get a lot of their heaviest, darkest songs. So if you want variety, Danzig 4 is definitely your thing. Now, it's my personal least favorite of the first four, just putting that out there right away. However, there's still great stuff on here, but all the weakest songs are when they're changing things up, like the song Can't Speak, which is about censorship again. But it sounds like the music is played backwards.
You want black eyes like that? Yeah, I think it'd be cool. Okay.
Can't speak, can't talk, can't do anything I want, can't help or change your mind.
But the heavy songs in here don't miss a beat, like the song that feels like 777 called Little Whip, starting out with the acoustic guitars and then rocking out, and then of course you got the sinister heavy riffs of Until You Call on the Dark. And they also did a music video for the strange ambient song on here, Statistical, which was just a sadistic choice and stupid and brain dead of Glenn. And this is honestly kind of the point where he started to make decisions that made zero sense. But my personal favorite on here has to be the Stalker song, which is a very point of view type song where Glenn's getting into character, stalking someone, saying he's gonna come into their house and come in their hole. And it is very, very strong. It has Glenn building up intensity all throughout it. Sadly though, this great lineup would dissolve over our favorite musical differences.
Originally, the lineup of Danzig was never supposed to last that long with those members. And I think it lasted too long with those members.
I don't think that when the band changes, you know, it should stay the same name. It becomes a different band.
And some of the ideas I wanted to use and go with darker, harder stuff. People like Biscuits and Eerie and John just didn't want to get that. John wanted to go more old school, kind of like egoed out Ingve stuff, and I hate that shit. Okay, and I wanted a crunchier, heavier guitar sound, and John eventually started saying, well, I want to do this like pop rock sound.
Now, even though Glenn had pretty much been producing their album since Danzig 3, because Rick Rubin was extremely overworked, this is where he also burns a bridge with Rick. At this point, Glenn just starts a forest fire because he's gonna burn every bridge, every tree, everything. And he goes scorched earth and has a problem with the label too, which were owned by Disney at the time, Hollywood Records.
None of that was gonna happen. Disney wasn't, you know, had no say-so over Hollywood Records, and I was going to get my own label, so all the Samhain stuff and Black Aria and everything else, Danzig, they were going to make a home for me there, and it was all lies. So what happened was, you know, of course, Roy Disney does have full control of Hollywood Records. And then, so what happened is that 3 weeks in, we had the plug pulled and we got a fight.
Now this time they have regular recurring drummer Joey Castillo come in and some other guys, but honestly, things will just never be the same, even though Glenn writes all the music. But there will be great albums to come. We just have to suffer a little first. You know, many music fans love to dub a band's albums as credibility albums. The albums that show that they're a real artist. This is their touchstone albums. This is why they're so important. This is not one of those. In fact, I'd love to dub this as an embarrassment album. This is the albums like Saint Anger that we point our fingers at and laugh at. We throw in the gym locker and we just torture this sumbitch. Laughing at every line. You have no soul, you have no soul. Girl, I'm gonna make you come. Free your body with my gun. This whole thing is basically bad industrial music, not even having the nerve to be bad industrial metal. It gives us nothing we actually want to hear. And one of the better songs on here just ends up being a complete rip-off of 9 Inch Nails anyways. For God's sake, on the song Sacrifice, he literally says on the downward side, like the downward spiral.
Under the downward side, I was a death you begged to hold. Now you have a thing you want.
And another thing that sucks is this is unfortunately the last glimmer of Glenn's good voice before we become completely shot and weak and whispery, and it's wasted on by far the worst thing he's ever done. But there is a really good song at the end of the album called Ashes, which is more slow and melodic when you're not hearing loud, irritating noises, where you can clearly hear how good Glenn's voice was. Now the remaster of this adds some songs and it does make the sound slightly better, but come on, who are we kidding ourselves here? And honestly, it's pretty rich of Glenn of all people to complain that the members wanted to ruin the band's sound and take them in the wrong directions. But I'll take Cock Rock and Yngwie Malmsteen any day of the week over this shit.
You feel that this album is heavier than 5? I know it has more guitars that are in your face, and the industrial seems a little bit more subtle than the last one.
I don't know, because I thought some of the beats on the last record were just like bone crushing. So maybe it's heavier in a different way. It's definitely more guitar oriented. We wanted more guitar. Because the guitar got buried on the last record. Yeah. So we wanted to make sure the guitar was really in your face on this one.
This has got to be one of the most underrated albums ever. It is awesome. Even the album cover is the best album cover Glenn has ever had in any of his bands. Whereas Danzig 5 was bad industrial music, Danzig 6 is great industrial metal, kicking your ass the entire time. And this time the industrial elements end up being icing on the cake as opposed to actually being distracting and awful. Case in point, my favorite song on the album, which is one of the greatest industrial metal songs of all time, Fire Mass. But the downside here is that, as you could hear, Glenn's voice is pretty shot at this point and would whisper on a lot of the songs instead of giving us that full howl, most notably on the opening juggernaut Five Finger Crawl. There's also other great songs in here like Cult Without a Name and the very catchy Belly the Beast, but a very notable song on here, 13, was actually an acoustic song that Glenn wrote for Johnny Cash.
I walked into Rick Rubin's living room to record one night, and there sat a guy and he said, "John, this is Glenn. Glenn, this is John."
Somebody from Rick's office called me and asked me if I knew who Johnny Cash was. I said, "Yeah, I know who Johnny Cash is." And they said, "Would you write a song for him?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll write a song for him." And I wrote it like in a half hour because it was just my impression of who Johnny Cash was or what he meant. And that's when I wrote 13.
Got the number 13 tattooed on my neck. When the ink starts to itch, then the black will turn to red.
Now, a lot of people bring that up, and the version that Johnny did as well as Glenn's version are extremely different.
I was born to bring trouble wherever I'm at.
And this version on Danzig 6 actually was the opening song in the movie The Hangover.
This is just very heavy, a lot of tuned down guitars, really just kind of like my answer to all the rap metal crap that's out there, you know, or like frat metal guys stealing heavy music and trying to make it into like some kind of frat rock, and that ain't gonna happen, not while I'm around.
That's a great idea, Glenn. Yes, let's shit on new metal by making some. I like your lives now. I like you better. Walking your geckos and leashes in leather. I watch you curl up into a circle. Honestly though, other than that song, this is actually a pretty damn good album. Arguably better than even Danzig 6. Coming in here with even less industrial elements and even heavier riffs than before. And then Todd Youth just brings it with the heavy riffs and tone that's honestly comparable to John Christ and is absolutely obliterating it on the song Black Mass. What's so strange though is that so many old metal bands at this time, the turn of the millennium, were sitting there with their classic lineups reuniting, and Glenn did not care. He didn't even want to do a throwback album at this time, which just seems like a big shame and a wasted opportunity. I mean, hell, the Misfits only just reunited after all these years, but that's Danzig 777, The Neighbor of the Beast, one of the strongest albums in this dark age of Danzig.
No one has the right to take my life or take something away from me. Who gave them that right? Just the fact that they would think that they have that right means they die. They die. Straight up.
Now, with Circle of Snakes, Glenn decided to bring in some of that heavy, doomy, drudgy element that was missing since Danzig 3 and 4. And he also brought in the touring guitarist from Danzig 5, Tommy Victor, who I'm honestly not the world's biggest fan of. He is constantly, and I mean constantly, doing guitar squeals. His tone is just kind of obnoxious. And that paired with Glenn's voice being a little weak, the songs are still mostly strong here though. And honestly, one of the heaviest songs Glenn's ever done, inspired by the black metal he was listening to at the time, a song called The Hell Mask. Not great, not the throwback we're looking for, but pretty decent. Then Glenn decided to release the excellent compilation Lost Tracks of Danzig and then did the Black Aria 2. A lot of you have heard of this infamous situation where Glenn Danzig got completely knocked out by this giant fat There was a music venue that was having a bunch of opening bands, including the height-phobic Northside Kings. And Glenn was the main attraction. He was the lead show at the end, and he was waiting forever to go on stage and pissing everyone off. And eventually he was confronted by this guy and got into an altercation and then knocked Glenn out and then ran away. This guy's just bullying poor Glenn. I mean, what a jerk.
When I'm doing a record, I always make sure that I keep in mind who I am and what I'm about and what it is I do. And so it's just second nature. I already know. Right away when I write something, if it's not remotely Danzig, it's outdoor. It doesn't even make it to the studio. So I guess I'm known for writing catchy, heavy songs, and I really wanted this one to even be more like early 70s record with a very contemporary feel though.
For those of you looking for that classic, old school, great Danzig sound, Deth Red Sabaoth is the closest we will ever get. Most of the instruments were recorded with old bass amps. And not only is the music a throwback, Glenn is actually singing pretty damn well on this album. And even though his voice is slightly hoarse still, he's really going for it, especially on songs like Black Candy. And even though this album, the next one, would have drums by John Kelly from Typo Negative, this song is the one time since Samhain that Glenn actually played drums. But the best song here is the single Juju Bone, which is just goofy as hell, but honestly it's so catchy and strong. It's just as good as some of the old material, and that music video's got to be the greatest green screen music video of all time. Then he took a break for a little bit and released the abysmal covers album called Skeletons, where not only are some of his vocal performances really bad again, and he's going for it and straining his voice, the production is god-awful and holding back any amount of decent performances on here. I mean, the NIB cover and music video is just embarrassing. It's like, how many porn stars can Glenn afford for a music video? And it doesn't even touch a hair on the Hand of Doom cover on Danzig 5. I'm saying positive things about Danzig 5, about how dog shit this is.
If I have something to say, I'm going to say it. But if I don't, I'm not going to force it, and I'm not just going to put out an album because the label wants me to put out an album or because haven't had a record out in a while. It's like, it's going to be a terrible album if you do that.
At this point, Black Laden Crown is the last thing Danzig has released, and it's decent. It's got weaker vocals compared to Deth Red Sabaoth, and the production's weaker as well. Not as bad as his cover albums, but the songwriting is still pretty good here. Best song, probably Last Ride, and Glenn is really going for it on songs like this, and it sounds like he cares. It's about as good as Circle of Snakes, pretty decent, but then Glenn decided to reward us with another dog shit covers album, which is even worse. This is Danzig Sings Elvis, and it's borderline unlistenable. There's so many Danzig defenders and shills that will sit there and go, well, it's old school, it's sounding raw, but I don't remember our 80s and 90s and 70s albums being recorded on flip phones, do you? And as if Glenn couldn't get any more embarrassing, he released what would be considered by many to be the Room of this generation, a film so bad and hilarious that you can't take your eyes off of it, Veronica.
What do you want?
Hello, pretty. Collections.
Collections? What do you mean collections? Who are you? How did you get in here?
Haven't you heard? I'm the face collector.
You know, I'm starting to think that the height-phobic guy from the Northside Kings that punched Glenn may have left him a little confused. But that's it for Danzig at this point. He says that he doesn't want to do any more albums and he just wants to tour and see what he feels like doing. But honestly, can't you just reunite the classic lineup and give us some classic Danzig once again?
What would you like to be remembered for after you're gone?
I don't care.
Subscribe to the